I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we meet today. I would also like to pay my respects to elders past and present. So the Hook is a mine experience tour at the Central Deborah Gold Mine. I'm located in Bendigo on Dja Dja Wurrung country, so this is an accessible place, and it would give the students an opportunity to engage their senses, their sight, their hearing, smell, and touch, to think about what they already know and what they would like to know about the topic of the gold rush. Mine, all mine. So the domain is history, the topic is the gold rush, and the big idea that I'm focusing on is what are different perspectives on the gold rush. And the illustration that I have here is by Thomas Gill of the Bendigo Creek in August 1852. So you could ask students what they see and how it relates to what they know of the creek. So alignment to the Victorian curriculum content descriptors, I've placed 3 here that relate to history, and they focus on perspectives of people from the past and different beliefs and values of those different cultural groups and individuals. And then I've got a link to the English curriculum using comprehension to interpret and analyze information. And then the cross-curriculum priorities, I've actually included all 3 because we'll be looking at Aboriginal perspectives, Asian perspectives, and sustainability, in that there's a lot of discussion about how the gold rush connects to the land and what that means. So after finding out what the students already know, then the focus shifts to what they want to know. And this relates to a critical inquiry approach where the students are driving their learning. So questions are important at the start. And one question is, why did people move to Australia? And you can divide these into push and pull reasons. Pull being, the main one being, they were drawn to the lure of finding gold. But also thinking about the women and children who were married to men who wanted to find this gold. Or some of the push reasons, including they had to leave their country because of money, crime, or they were in danger. A question here would be, what do you think are other reasons people might have moved to Australia? So questions are really important along the whole journey of the investigation. Some other questions that you could ask at this point would be, where can you find evidence showing different perspectives and cultures? Can you hear different voices in the retelling of history, or is it told from one voice? Then thinking about the different countries that people came from as they migrated to Australia. And you can see there the vast population increase. So then I would focus on 3 main cultural perspectives of this history: the European perspective, the Asian perspective, and the Indigenous Australian perspective. You could even make a Venn diagram and think about the different values and practices that overlap and are different with these 3 cultural groups. The European perspective is probably the one we are the most familiar with. History is often told through this voice. You could think about a particular story, a biography of an individual, and get the students researching that. Or you could think about the slightly less popular stories, so the Hungarians or the Scandinavians who also migrated to Australia during this time. Art can be a helpful tool to show a perspective. And these 2 paintings are European styles that show life on the goldfields. So the Asian perspective, although much smaller in number, is still just as valid and significant. The artwork here shows an Asian style, which is more subtle and shows the great community between the diggers. There was conflict between the Chinese and the Europeans, and this probably stemmed from different values, different religion, and different ways of doing things, as well as jealousy and greed. And very importantly is the Indigenous perspective. The Indigenous people had great knowledge of the land and they were connected to it, as opposed to these new migrants who just wanted to take wealth. They had community like the Asian groups, but they had this longevity and spirituality. In 1851, they had roughly the same amount of people as the Chinese, but their voice is very important. And this links to, just the idea of how did mining affect and destroy the landscape? And what can we learn from the Indigenous perspective, from their care for the land? And then I've got one more example showing different perspectives on one event through two different artworks. So this is showing the European perspectives on the Eureka Stockade, which was significant in the miners getting rights and led to democracy. However, this is the Indigenous perspective, which shows the brutality of the event and is quite stark and harsh and shows some people off in the distance whose voice may not have been heard. And there are some more questions on the side to get the students thinking. Here are 3 further resources for the students to explore, and there are my references. Thank you.